Welcome to Yes Also. I'm Susie Barrett. My guest today is Ronnie Adrian. You know him as Ron on Grand Crew, and LA improvisers have been fans of his for years. He plays on The Big Team, Bangarang, ASCAT, and for years he was on the Herald team The Dragons and co-hosted the UCB Cage Match. Ronnie has an unbelievable swiftness and ability to just jump into a bit or a game with zero hesitation, and you'll get to hear that in this episode. I hope you have as much fun as we did. Remember to head to Instagram at YesAlsoPod for pictures of Ronnie throughout his improv career, and keep an eye on that Instagram page for an exciting announcement. We are getting ready to launch a whole bunch of bonus content and extra episodes and Q&As, and you'll be in the loop if you follow us at YesAlsoPod on Instagram. Okay, let's get to it. Ronnie, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, yeah. Great.
Oh.
What a start.
Oh, am I here?
Yeah. Oh, what a start. Okay.
Ronnie, wake up.
Yeah. Sorry, man. This couch is so comfortable.
Yeah, it is. I want to start by talking about game because you teach game as like is that sort of like your would you say that's the core of your what you find important in improv?
Yeah, I guess.
Let me start like this. Instead of putting something on you, I'm only saying that because when we went to the Edinburgh Improv Festival, your like first pitch for a workshop was game. And your description of it was like game is the most important fundamental. And I was like, oh, I want to talk to him about that.
Oh, okay.
But I don't have to apply that to you.
No.
You tell me what you...
I do think game is very important. I mean, yeah. I guess I never really thought about it in that way, but yeah, I guess, because to me, it's like this. I do think that if you understand the game that you're trying to play, it just makes it easier to then contribute to the scene because you're viewing it through the lens of, all right, if this is sort of what me and my scene partner have agreed that we're trying to play with, right? This idea, this comedic idea, then what are the moves that we are making that help to reinforce the thing that we are saying is funny about this?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it gives some...
I guess so. I'm a game player.
Wait a second. I guess I do teach that workshop.
Yes. I mean, and you know, out there, it's this is how I realized I am probably a bigger improv junkie than I think I am. Because at this festival, there's a workshop that mostly everyone has to teach with just like 6 hours. It's a 6-hour workshop. Like you have one for 3, and then you have like a 6-hour workshop. And at face value, that's a big undertaking. You're like 6 hours? I'm going to be teaching for 6 hours?
I read that in my color drain from my face. Like, what am I gonna?
Right. What am I going to do for 6 hours? And then you're thinking, do people want this for 6 hours? Are there going to be people who sign up to do something for 6 hours in one day?
Right.
And there were. And I also realized, I could have did this for more hours, right?
Yeah.
So it is interesting. I do like working with people, especially when I feel like they're getting it or they're learning something, or not even just learning stuff, that they're enjoying the experience. I can't ever really tell if people are enjoying the experience, but I'm hoping that they are. And each time I'm coaching or I'm teaching, or each time that I'm sort of working with people over the years, I've always tried to make sure that the experience is not only that they're learning something, but I hope they're also enjoying the process of it.
Yeah. Have you had coaches or teachers of both types? Like I can think of, I won't name them, but like I have definitely had people in the category that make it enjoyable and positive and fun. And then people who are like harsh and cold. And I'm wondering if that informed that in you, or if it's just a personal experience of like, just your instinct is wanting to have that kind of environment.
I think I can be a fun person. I think as a teacher, I probably not as fun as I am outside of that. And so I had always been aware of that, or self-conscious about it, let's even say. And so I have always continued to try to grow that other part of it. Because I look at there are some people who people consider to be good teachers that are also just, people have nothing bad to say about them.
Right.
Like a Julie Brister to me is somebody that fits in that category where it's like, oh man, and like people just love Julie, like they love being taught by that aspect. And so I was always like, how do I do that? Like, how do I get that vibe? Because I don't think people come away, they might enjoy the class, but they're not just like, and I just love the way that it's like, oh, it was fun and like he's so-and-so, but it's a different vibe.
I noticed for a while you were wearing that Julie Brister wig and those glasses.
Yeah, I was trying everything to catch the vibe.
You had that pin that said, ask me about how I'm Julie. Yeah. You caught the vibe with me. It worked.
Yeah. But not so much with other people. Not so much other people.
Let's talk about the beginning of your improv journey. Like, what led you to improv? What hooked you to it? Like, what was your start?
What was my start? I moved to LA when I was like 20.
From
South Carolina.
Oh, cool. Gamecocks. Got it.
And I'm wearing a Gamecocks hat just in case people don't know, and I pointed to it very aggressively for those who are listening. I dropped out of college and I moved here, and then I kind of kicked around for a few years.
Let's back up for a second. What was the inspiration for like, I'm going to leave college, I'm going to go to LA? Was there like something that incited that in you? Or? Yeah,
I went to college to be a nurse, and, I realized that I wanted to help people. That was that feeling was the dominant feeling. But then once I got to college and started kind of working in that field, I realized like, this isn't probably the way I'm going to help people. So once I kind of knew that, my roommate in college, he was from New York. And so I had stayed with him for a little bit over the summer of our freshman year. So when I was deciding to go somewhere, I said, well, I've already been to New York because I went, but I've never been to LA. So I went to LA. I came to LA.
Yeah, cool. And you said you were kind of like floating around here for a bit. What was that? Like, what was your start in LA?
My start in LA was wild. And I just say that it was interesting because when I first got to LA, like the first day, I had an experience here that now I can sort of chalk into the category of, that was a very LA experience. It's like LA was welcoming to me to the, hey, we don't play around in this city. Like, you ain't in the South no more. Like, we're different out here, right? Like, you're going to meet characters. You're going to meet a lot of characters. You're going to be, there's situations out here, and you're going to have to be able to navigate these situations responsibly. And
this ain't nursing school in the South.
This ain't nursing school in the South, buddy. So when I first got out here, I thought I wanted to work in entertainment, and that lasted maybe like 3 months. I don't know. And then I was like, maybe I don't want to do this anymore. And then I just became a regular citizen. I was like in a world. I was making music.
Excuse me, City Hall. Yeah. I'd like to apply to be a citizen, please.
Excuse me. When I say citizen, know that it means that everyone here seems to be in here for the industry. Not me. I just want to be regular. You
know those Fisher Price sets with just the little people that populate the trucks in the airport? Right. That's me. Yeah,
I'm the population of this place. I am the average person in this realm. No. Not someone who is, not someone doing something extraordinary.
Yeah, don't snap a uniform on me or put me on a pedestal. Yeah.
No. Jeans, white shirt, I'm that person.
Yeah, to be clear, I have nothing to offer and I don't want to be noticed. I am a citizen.
To be clear, I have stuff to offer. I don't want to offer it.
I'm withholding.
Yes, I'm definitely withholding. I'm withholding my talent. And so I was making music because of something that I could do in solitary.
Yeah.
That was a solitary experience. Yeah.
In solitudinance.
Yeah.
I think it's solitudinance.
That sounds like the right one.
Yeah. Had you made music before? Did you have experience in this?
I mean, I think I was you know what's interesting? I always say, or I won't say I always say, but I've kind of developed that philosophy that I think people know what they want to do early on, but then life and everything else that comes with it sort of makes you believe that you can't do it. So when I was growing up, there was a point where I was like, I want to be a music producer. Like I want to produce music. Just because, you know, growing up in the music video era, it definitely, there was this, especially in the era where, and I guess it still happens now, but you know, back in the era where the producers of the music were their own brand.
Yes.
Where it was like, oh man, like you could hear like, oh yeah. And so there was this lore behind the notion, I want to be a producer like that, like everybody, that sort of thing.
Right.
And so you know, I got tools that sort of help me do that. Sometimes I would make music and, you know, just make music for my friends and pass it around for them to like, but they still kind of bring up today. They all kind of like laugh at and stuff. And, or not, you know, just like, because it's like a kid making music and you're like, remember when you did this? And like, or people still like, I still listen to this or like that type of thing. That still, or like on an old computer, I'd be like, what is this? I'm like, oh, and then it's like, man, that's funny.
It's like a wave file from like Windows 2.
And it's just, and the levels of everything is all off. It's like the instrumental of a known song, and then me just kind of screeching in there loudly on vocals. It's like, so it's
some computer sound effects, like it's time to go.
It's just like, so, you know, I mean, the thing that we all have, and more so now, people have that experience, and just now because they're able to put it out, it's out there, as opposed to, you know, me, which I wouldn't have wanted it out there. I'm glad that it's like something that's only for me and a select group of people. So to your question, yes, a little bit in a way. It wasn't foreign to me, the notion of making music. It wasn't until then I got out here that then I started to kind of expand that skill.
Yep.
But once again, it was a thing that I was doing because I liked music, but also I didn't need anybody else to help me do it.
Right. And being new in a new town and trying to like get your feet under you in this city, it's like, well, you can always go home and do this. You can work on it. You can get better. And if you enjoy it, then it's like, yeah, why wouldn't you be doing that? Were you did you take any sort of class in that, or were you just learning from programs and the internet and stuff?
Yeah, pretty much programs. And like back then when you can get like a DVD teacher, you know, and then with the booklet, and you're like, okay, so here's the thing. So I was learning instruments and sort of like, okay, and he's doing this, and like pause it for a second. Why is he holding that? And so there was a lot of, that mixed with sort of self-taughtness. Thing that I also learned about myself in the process is I'm not very dedicated. Like I'm not.
That pause made that so funny. I'm not very
that's what I'm looking for. Dedicated. And I just basically mean it's hard for me in certain things to just push myself to do something. Now, in some ways, it's like, man, I wish I could push myself in this avenue in the same way I do it in this avenue.
I have that so much. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. But yeah. No, I'm like, constantly, I'm like, why can I only exercise for like a week at a time before I like fall off the track? And it's like, but I can do improv like every night of the week forever.
Right.
What? Yeah.
And even in that, it's, I love improv, and I think I wouldn't be the person that I am, and I wouldn't have had a lot of the experiences that I've had without it. But I also recognize, you know, looking back, where it's like, yeah, but the amount of time that I did improv I could have took a percentage off that time to kind of do something else, like in the field, and to become better at as well. And so there is sort of that about it for me as well.
Yeah. So you're in your early LA days, you're making music, you're watching, let's say, the Brian Setzer is teaching you guitar via CD.
Brian Setzer. Brian Setzer. He's teaching me, and it's not just orchestral or rockabilly music. He's teaching me, just the generalness of playing the guitar and other instruments, even though he's only known for guitar, or mostly known for guitar.
Right. He pulls out a timpani drum,
and so in each section of the video, I'm always surprised, being like, I wonder what instrument he's going to pull out of that bag now.
They're all in a bag.
Yeah, they're all in a bag.
Some of them are very tiny versions.
Some of them are huge bags. Like, what's going to pull out this huge bag?
The deep pull for me was Brian Setzer, because my dad had those CDs. Was like, my dad was an accomplished guitar player, but he's like, you got to hear this guy. I'm like, Dad, what are you doing? Like, you already know how to play. How do I get the DVD in here? I want to get to the next thing. Yeah. So you're learning all these music things and you're working on music. What led you to improv, or had you already known about it? What was your first?
I've always been a funny person, and however I got there is not important. Yeah, right? Like,
all right, podcast over.
Yeah, however I got there is not important. But I think there's just a natural fun humor that people have.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's a genetic thing, and then it's sort of then exacerbated, if I'm using that word correctly, by just your experience or sort of how you want to use it in the world, let's say. So like, I think that I was a relatively just popular-ish person, growing up, but I think that I was never going to be the person that was like, I'm going to be tough, or I'm going to be known as the tough guy. Like, the person that comes to, it's like, yeah, I'm always the guy who's like, yeah, that's Ronnie. He's cool, and he's
so you're
and he's
wearing
funny,
that
and he makes
Gamecocks hat, ironically.
Right.
You're not Gamecocks. You're like, Gamecocks.
Well, no, I am Gamecocks, but it's not. I don't have to flex to say it. I'm going like, no, this is the gang I'm rolling with.
So you were like likable, fun, popular guy.
I would assume.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would assume. I don't want to say that, because then I don't want somebody hearing me like, we hated you. What are you talking about? Growing up, we hated you. I'm pretty sure, because I'm pretty sure there are people that probably did, right? Because there's also, so who knows? Who knows? Maybe this isn't all a lie. Maybe right now what I'm doing is I'm definitely lying on my past. Who knows?
I mean, that's how all of us are at all times. Like, we only have our subjective experience. Right. So it's like, and so do they. Like,
right.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, dog, you were a jerk to me. And it was like, and you have those experiences where it's like, oh, that was not my intention at all.
Right.
Or
also like, oh, sorry, I was 16.
Right.
Like,
right.
My brain wasn't developed.
I was 16. And dog, I know you probably were going through something, and I can hear it's bad, but I think we all were.
Yeah.
Right. Like, we all were going through different things. And, I don't think I was that bad, but if, I've made a few enemies on the way. If you're my enemy that's listening to this out of spite, know that I'm sorry, and I hope that we don't have to be foes anymore.
The idea, foes, the idea of having an actual enemy who finds this podcast and is listening to an improv interview with you out of spite. Right. I'm going to get him.
I'm going to get him. I hope he talks about his interview, how he's failing at life and how he's such a struggle. Like, I just want to hear all the negative things going on in his life.
I can't wait till Susie asks him how he's fucked everything up. That's certainly why she asked him to be on this, because she hates him like I do. Oh my God. That person's doing great.
Great, yeah.
You know, and we wish your foes well.
Right. Hey, man. Yeah, no hate, man. I wish my foes well.
Yeah.
I wish my foes well.
So you've always been funny. And I believe that too. I think there's like humor is somewhat innate and genetic, and it has to be. And then whatever your experience is helps define that and guide it, or like stoke it into more, you know, it's like, did you grow up in an environment where, like, I was the youngest, so I was like using humor to get attention, or
I was
like,
the
and
youngest
then,
as well.
Yeah. Of how many?
I have 3 sisters.
Gotcha. Oh, like Chekhov, like the Chekhov play. There's a Chekhov play called Three Sisters.
Oh, then
Yeah.
yes.
Then
yes. I am also knowledgeable of plays.
Yes.
And Chekhov's gun, is that in that play?
It's not, but it is a theory
Chekhov's
that
gun
came
his
from
own
Chekhov. It is not. It's a theory in theater that like if there's a gun on stage, it has to be used at some point. Otherwise, the audience has like a theatrical version of blue balls. They're like, why didn't they use that gun?
Okay.
But you know that
Now
because
that you told me this, yeah. Oh, now that's the perfect way to put it for me. Blue balls. Theatrical blue balls. Got it.
So
Come on, man. Don't give me theatrical blue balls. Use that gun.
come on, man. You don't know how much these theatrical blue balls hurt. Just use it a little bit. Just use the tip of the gun. just let the bullet come out. Just a
little bit. Just a little bit. You don't have to fully pull the trigger. Just a little bit.
Just touch the gun.
A tiny bang. Just a little bang.
Tiny bang. So what was UCB your first improv exposure, or like how did improv arrive in your life once you're in LA?
You know, when people think that you're funny, especially growing up, now I think it's different because there's just so many versions of how people do comedy now out there. So people will now kind of be like, man, you need to be making skits or whatever. I'm pretty sure that's what people tell their friends now, like growing up. But you know, when I was growing up, if you were funny, people would just, the only category would be, man, you should do stand-up comedy. It didn't matter what you did. Like, you could be the type of funny person that's like, I'm funny because I can put a tennis racket over my head a bunch of times to make people laugh or whatever. I don't know. And the people are like, you need to do stand-up comedy. And it's like, how is this the same? Like, these are different skills.
Not for Steve Martin.
Not for Steve Martin.
Who's I know what you mean. Yeah.
But it was like, that was sort of, so when I was here and then I realized that, I'm probably never going to make any money from music. And kind of the path that I'm on is it's a dead end path. It's like, if I'm saying that I'm a regular citizen, which is fine, it's also like I'm a regular citizen and I'm not enjoying it. I'm not enjoying my life, and it feels like I'm just living to die.
Wow.
Damn, that's crazy. And I was still young, so I was like, this can't be my next 20 years or whatever. Like, it can't just be this.
Right.
And so
it's very like The Office, like just the idea that like most people are just kind of working to pay their bills at a job they don't like, being a citizen, and just kind of everything in their life just becomes flat and gray and dull. And it's like, yeah, what is that?
Which is, I think if I wanted sort of that particular aspect of life, then I wouldn't have moved here.
Yeah.
I would just move back home and, do the thing that felt normal, quote unquote, start a family and sort of like raise my family sort of in the same area where I grew up. And they would all go to the same high schools that, the same high school I went to, and had the same rivalries that I did and all this type of stuff, which I think that's fine. And it's great, especially if that's what you want. But it was something where I realized that I didn't necessarily want that. And so when I was in the space where it was, well, I'm not even going to get that, but I'm also going to have worse than that if I continue on this path. Then me and a guy that I worked with who was almost even more depressed than I was, we decided that we were going to take a class. And I should say that I used to work with this person and a separate person, and she was a stand-up comic. So she, at work one day, she asked if, I wanted to, I was funny and we were going to do some stuff, and she asked if I wanted to do a spot at an open mic that she was starting at, basically a restaurant. It was, and I remember going like, okay, sure.
Immediately, like, where do I find a tennis racket?
Yeah,
is there a tennis racket store in town?
Tennis racket. This is, and so I get up in the middle of this seafood restaurant, and it's so funny because it was sort of that thing where I had some jokes, and I know some people kind of oftentimes go, man, I did my first stand-up set ever and it was terrible, but it made me want to go back or whatever. And I did mine and I felt okay about it, right? In a way that after the fact, like I got laughs and I didn't feel like I'm not going to sit up and be like, man, I killed, man. I had them over there spitting out they oysters or whatever. I'm not going to say that. But, I felt like it was good enough to sort of encourage me. And then after the fact, like the regulars who were like these, who I would like it to if you're in a jazz restaurant, and the old jazz guys who also still play jazz, like it was like those type of comics, and they were like, hey man, funny stuff, you want to go smoke some weed? And I don't smoke weed, so I was like, no thank you, but I felt good because like he's asking me to smoke this weed, like let's
right,
okay, like okay, I'm doing something,
I belong here,
and so that then mixed with we want to sort of take a class, or we want to do something, and when you don't know what the options are, you're just kind of doing what you've heard.
Yeah.
So I was going to go and we were going to do groundlings. I was going to do groundlings because I was like, oh, I know what groundlings, I've heard of groundlings. And I remember when I went there to kind of just inquire about the place, I went in there just a regular weekday, and I was like, hi, blah, blah, blah. And there was somebody in there working. And it's not like they didn't care, but they weren't also bending over backwards to sort of engage with me. It was like, yeah, like there's a pamphlet over there or whatever. You can kind of take that. It's like, oh, okay, cool. I just kind of grabbed it and looked around a little bit and just kind of like left. Like it wasn't like, oh, yo, what's going on? You trying to take a class here? Oh yeah, we do a lot of. It wasn't that sort of thing, and I don't even necessarily know if we do it at UCB. I would hope there was some element of that,
right?
But back then, it definitely was like, hey man, where the groundless dogs? Like people are hand over fist trying to get in here. So
right. We don't need your money. We've got plenty.
We don't need your money. And at this time, looking at your skin color, probably not our biggest demographic. I don't know. I'm not saying that black people don't do stuff there. Of course they do. But what I am saying is I probably just in general was not important to them.
Right. They're like, come back when people are spitting out their oysters over you.
Right. If people are laughing, but their oysters are still in their mouth, then you're not groundling material yet.
Read the last page in the pamphlet. We do an oyster check every 10 minutes at our shows.
We're looking in people's mouths, and there's even a crumble of oyster still in there. You're cut. You are cut.
And don't think that we won't check under their tongues in case they're hiding it, because we've had that problem. If you pay your friends to hide oysters under their tongues.
Yeah, the fact that I paid friends to come and they still didn't have the decency to spit the oyster out. It's like, you're
Those
a bad
are
friend.
shitty friends.
That's a bad friend.
They go straight to the faux list. I mean, man, that sucks.
You couldn't spit the oyster out? Like, yeah, I get it. You didn't think it was funny, but you still could have faked it. You know you were helping me out.
And it seems, Chet, it's harder to keep it in your mouth under your tongue. That's fucking...
Is this off principle?
Right.
It's off principle that it's like, I just didn't find it funny, so I didn't want to spit it out, but I didn't want to put him in a bind, so I kept it under my tongue. Like, what do you want me to do?
I'm an honest person.
I'm an honest person. You got to earn the laugh. You got to earn the spit out.
Yeah. Do you want to be the kind of comedian who wants people to fake spitting their oysters out? You want to really earn it.
Right. It's like... I mean, it makes sense, but also you really fucked me on this. You know how much money it cost me to get in the grounds for them to just throw me aside and never talk to me again?
The janitor catches you like throwing oysters on the floor. Like, hey man.
Hey man, your job was to get them to spit them out naturally,
right?
And my job is to clean up here. So I don't like cleaning up oysters where somebody just manually put them on the ground.
That's more cleanup job for me, because when they spit them, they all kind of end up in the same place. When you're dropping them, they're under the seats. They're hard to get to.
As a janitor who's been doing this for a long time, I know when an oyster was manually put somewhere and when it was spit.
So
like
I'm telling
detective janitor. Yeah. There's some unnaturalness to this. To this oyster placement. We might have a disqualification here.
Detective Janitor is such a great. I'd watch that series. Like all these little like chalk outlines, but it's like around puddles and stuff, so they all have kind of the same shape.
I think that's the new genre of show now, where it's because I see so many commercials now of shows that are coming out where it's like, oh, we're the police department, man, we gotta call this person to kind of come in and help us solve this thing, and it's like, oh, I guess that's the new wave of what people are interested in, where it's like,
right,
where it's like you think unorthodox in a way that other people don't see. Like, what are we missing here? And
right.
It's like, there's comedy versions of that's coming out, and also dramatic versions. I was about to say dramatic version.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh yeah, I guess that's the new thing.
We've realized this veterinarian has psychic abilities and can help the police force like connect with their bomb squad dogs. Like, what?
That's out of all the shows that I know who aren't getting made, that's what you chose to make. Okay.
They're running out of ideas, man. It's like
you can help with their bomb squad dogs.
The trailer is longer than the show because they have so much exposition to get
out. They have
out.
to explain to you what this is, because it doesn't, at face value, you don't get it.
Right. Trust me, you don't get this show. Watch it.
All right. And please give us 2 to 3 episodes, because the first episode you won't be happy. You won't be happy.
Trust us.
You trust us. You'll kind of learn the world and the people in it, but you don't know what they do yet.
Right. Man, that really made me laugh. Okay. So you go into Groundlings, you get the pamphlet. Do you take a class, or you just take the pamphlet?
Not at all. Okay. I took the pamphlet. I was going to do Groundlings. I was going to sign up. And at the last minute, my friend, who was also depressed like I was, he said, oh, you know what? A person that we were starting to really like, who was kind of just coming up, bubbling up. His name was Donald Glover.
Oh yeah.
You might have heard of him. And
can't believe you got to see the bubble up.
Yeah, I got the bubble up. Like, they're very early. And he went to a place called UCB, and I immediately went, all right, I'll go there. That was it.
Right.
As soon as he said it, I was like, yeah, I'll go there. And so I went. And what was interesting about it was when I went to go sign up, I realized I had been there before.
Oh.
I was like, oh, because some friends of mine here, they just went to a show one night, and they were like, you want to go to this show with us? And I was like, yeah. And I think it was, I want to say it was Facebook. Mm-hmm. And
Paul Scheer and those guys, yeah.
Yes. And it was Facebook, and the thing, it was Facebook or MySpace, but I don't know if they did MySpace beforehand. But have they only did Facebook?
My awareness started with Facebook.
So
I can't speak to before
Facebook.
that.
I know it was.
Did they do a Friendster show?
Yeah, they used to do they did a social media show, but I know it was that. I don't remember anything about the show really. Like, that didn't change my opinion. I remember there's moments in my mind that I remember of, Like, a thing that I remember that now being around UCB, I'm like, this can't be true. This is not how this place works. Where we were outside in line, but the place wasn't open yet. So it's like we were just standing outside in line to a closed place. And then I remember walking around that Gelson's with my friends, and we have like chicken nuggets and we're throwing them at each other. Like, we were young. And I remember, there's elements of it that I remember, and there's other elements that I remember that feel so foreign to what I know about UCB that's like, I don't know if that happened or not, right?
Yeah. Did I dream that? And now I'm,
Yeah. So I signed up for a class pretty quickly. And I was waiting for my friend, and he was kind of dragging his feet. And I was like, well, I'm going to take the class. And then I just started on my journey, and that was it.
Did you enjoy it right away? What was your user experience?
I don't know. I think there's elements of it, especially in 101, where if you're coming from a place where I know that I can be goofy and fun in ways. There's also an element when somebody's kind of trying to make you, where I was very aware of it in a way that made me, I didn't like, where it's like, and now you're going to do this kind of, and I was like, I don't want to, like, I don't feel cool.
Don't shove me into that scene, like, reality.
Don't let me do, all right, so now I got to there was an element of having to just kind of wash away that artifice of cool or whatever that was very tough for me early on. But the thing that was not as tough for me was, and this is kind of still sort of the default, where, you're kind of in a class, and most people who sign up for classes, they're usually people who enjoy the idea that they are a funny person. And so they're in there to be weird. Like, they're not trying to they're just naturally just being weird, because it's like, I'm the funny. So it was a lot easy for me to come in, because I would just kind of go like, hey man, why you being so weird? Like, it was just like, so that was the natural sort of order of things. So
yeah, it's like, oh no, go ahead.
No, I was about to say, and so that was the thing that, because of that, it made it sort of easy to kind of acclimate myself to this world, in a sense.
Yeah. And very much fits in with the UCB style, which is like, play the reality.
Right.
Like, and a funny scene doesn't mean you're being a goofy, wacky person. A funny scene is like, there's an idea that's funny and we're both supporting it, as you were saying in the beginning of today. Like, so to have somebody just like, and then have you go like, why are you acting like this in the store? Is so funny. And then that ends up being the funny thing.
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Do you default to playing voice of reason characters?
I do. I think I default, and I think I look at it now where I think this is the thing that's going to make it sound arrogant, and so I'm acknowledging that immediately. I feel like I could do either or, and I feel like especially when I really started coming up through the system, where you're kind of going, yeah, I feel like I can voice of reason your weird character probably better than you can voice of reason mine. So if you want to be weird, I don't care.
I'll take one for the team and just be my best.
It doesn't matter to me. And it's not like we're planning that, but it's just in the scene, I'm always looking to default to be like, okay, hold on. What are you doing? What are you doing? Like, huh? And let's latch on to it. Right. And so by default, but also if I'm in a scene with somebody who I know that voice of reasons, and the second they sort of do the thing that's showing that, they're kind of calling, I'm like, great, run with the football. Let's go. Like, I'll be weird. Like, it doesn't. And I think over the years, I've gotten better and more specific at being weird, but I think early on a high majority of my scenes was me calling out the unusual.
Yeah, that makes sense. What I like about when you play unusual points of view, though, is that you play them real and like you play them believably, which is great. The sincerity and the truth of your like acting makes it so much funnier. I'm thinking of the scene that you and I were in the other night, where like it was based on a monologue where someone was too high, and I was like, honey, this is a dinner with my boss. Like you're out there talking about the color of people's consciousness. And right away you were like, right, don't you want to hear about how we all have different colors of consciousness? Like, just like so sincere and earnest.
Well, because I think it's interesting. And I say this to people that I'm working with, where it's hard to, the hardest version of any scene is you walk into a scene and it's like, hey, hey honey, I put the horses in the stable, and I'm gonna go wash my hands. And then their scene partner, the second thing out of their mouth is, you always do this. You always out there putting the horses in the stables. So now you have to sort of manufacture this weird, it's like, huh? Okay. Well, I got to put the horses, if I don't put the horses in there, it's like, and so you're trying to create this kind of weird game in a way. So if I'm gifted something, and this is a little bit different because this is off of a premise, so we kind of knew kind of what the idea we were working with was, or at least I had an idea of it. You're in those moments where you're kind of gifted something and maybe you don't have enough reference points to sort of build a comedic point of view around it. I have to root myself in this thing at its base first to then build. It's hard. So because I am a pretty logical improviser, let's say, I think even when I'm being unusual, most of the time I have to have an understanding of this unusual person to be able to fully embody the character.
Yeah.
So, and if I don't have those elements that allow for me to continue to heighten within the point of view of this character, then it falls apart pretty quickly.
Right.
So,
that's a skill and a talent that a lot of people don't have, or that it takes years to develop.
Took me 1 hour.
It's that Brian Setzer DVD. He pulled that out of the bag. But yeah, the rooting yourself in a place in your being where you believe what this character believes and sees things through their eyes really boils it down and simplifies it. And then, it's almost like everything else is inconsequential, because if you're driving from this place of like, well, but I want to tell you about the colors of consciousness. Like, why don't you want to hear it? Then it's a human thing. It doesn't matter what the specifics are. It's like, well, you want to do this, right?
Right. Like I know this is, I mean, I know you're presenting to me as weird, but why is this weird? I can't talk to your boss that we barely know and tell them about the color of his consciousness because I'm super high and he doesn't know that. Right.
Right. Yeah. From your perspective is like, well, and that's how we play in real life. Like that's how we are in real life. Is it's like you don't do something believing that it's wrong. Right. You do something believing that it's right and natural, and it's like, well, of course.
Right.
Like everyone wants to hear. I mean, people pay good money to find out what color their aura is. Like what? Like why wouldn't he want that?
Yeah, why wouldn't he want that?
And it's a great conversation starter. I mean, from there we can really get to know each other.
Right. And then you get there and the boss, you could clearly tell he's like, I don't want to hear this shit. And that's part of the fun, right?
Yeah.
And it is interesting. And I also would say that a lot of that sort of due diligence when it came to being an unusual stemmed from, I used to do a lot of improv, like a lot of improv. That mixed with, I used to host Tuesday Night Thunder. It was a long running indie improv show that we had here in LA. And afterwards we would have a jam. And that's honestly probably the thing that I miss the most about that show. And so in a jam, you're just playing with people who we had regulars, but then we also had people who would just kind of just show up, or maybe if their team performed, they would stick around, or if somebody had watched somebody and then they would stick around. And so you're like playing with this different mix of skilled people. So you just have to, in order to make them look good, you have to be at your best. To help whatever they're doing, right? And so sometimes you get these curveballs and you're just growing, you're adding stuff to your list because to me, I can sit here and honestly say, I mean, I like being funny. I like when people think that I am funny in something, but I mostly like, or I more so like when people think the scene was good, right? So to me, it doesn't matter if I am the unusual person. I'm the person that everyone's like, oh man, I'm cracking up on this guy. Or it doesn't matter if I'm the person that's lobbing for the other person to hit it out the park. As long as at the end, it's like, man, that was a really great scene. Everyone was laughing. They might kind of be like, oh man, Carl was killing it up there. And it's like, well, they're not really seeing what I was doing to help him out. But it's still like, yeah, but they love the scene, and that was the most important thing to me. And I think that's still something that rings true to me even today.
Yeah.
So in that respect, when I was doing stuff or when I was working with people or when I'm playing with people or whatever, I'm always just trying to make sure that we have a good scene. It doesn't always work, but that's the goal. I'm in there trying to have a good scene with with the person that I'm playing with.
Yeah, it's very team sport of you. Like, did you play team sports growing up? Yeah.
Yes, I'm an athlete.
What sports can I?
Yeah, I played in high school. I mostly played basketball and football. Cool. I was on the basketball team and then I was on the football team.
Have you been watching the Olympics basketball?
Mm-hmm. I've been watching more Olympics this year than I've ever watched ever. Because now I have Peacock and not Peacock. Yeah, I have Peacock. And it's everything is on there.
Yeah, and you can search by sport.
Yeah, you can search so I have just been watching so many sports. I've seen so much fencing.
This is my first time watching fencing. I'm like, why are they so dramatic and aggressive?
It's so interesting. Like, I've been watching so much. I've been watching a lot of different sports that I don't watch, trying to just learn the rules on the fly. And I can't pretend like I actually get it. And they will say, "Oh, look at that! Oh, look at the riposte! Oh, look at the riposte!" And you're like, "Okay, yeah." And you're like, "All right." And it's like, "Okay, it looked like he just moved back." And it's like, "All right, but he had the right of way." It's like rules that you don't understand.
Yeah.
But it's that mixed with then the commentary. It helps keep you engaged in a way where it's like, okay, like, all right, they're doing the thing.
Yeah.
And so even when I'm watching, and most of the time, I'm just rooting for America if I'm watching a thing, if they're in it. But there are times where I'm watching a sport that I don't know and no Americans are in it. Like, they've lost. And so I'm just kind of like watching whatever other country kind of go at it.
I'm invested now.
But you're still invested. And so, and I think there's just like an element of this year that I've gotten invested in stuff where it's truly like I wouldn't watch it any other time, but for some reason in this atmosphere, given that sort of commentary, it's like this has been like the biggest drama show I've been watching of the season these last 2 weeks.
Cancel my 6 through 10 o'clocks, Nancy LB.
Right. I can't. I have to finish this.
I took us on a tangent, but I wanted to say also, like, when you're talking about like, oh, look at Carl do his thing and they're not noticing this, that I'm like throwing these lobs. I think, like, at least when I watch
anybody, I know I just used Carl.
Well, we don't know which Carl.
Okay, this is true. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure your listeners they have an idea.
But
that could be anybody. It could be. It could be. When I'm out there throwing these to Carl Reiner, or when I'm out here throwing these improv lobs to the fictional Carl Winslow, doing it. But just anybody. It could be anyone in the scene. I use him as a reference because that's a friend. But it is any of those things. I don't. It doesn't, like, I'm very aware if I'm in a show and I don't feel like I'm doing well, or I don't feel like I don't feel like that I'm having a funny show. But the difference now is I don't let that take me out of the show.
Gotcha.
Right? There's been, in the past where it doesn't feel like I'm doing well and I don't feel like I've really been funny in the show. And then because of that, it sort of can take me out of a show where I'm not where I'm not as engaged in much, or I feel like I'm waiting too much to get in. It was like, I remember when there were times where when I was on Herald Night, where there'd be a scene going on, or there'd be like a scene going on. And maybe I wasn't too into the idea. You're like, oh, okay, whatever. But everybody else was into the idea where they just kept pouring into it and doing stuff. And I'm just waiting back like, all right, I'm waiting for it to end so I can start this thing. And then by the time it kind of goes over. It's like, oh, that was like 10 minutes. Like, so I didn't go to the show for like 10 minutes, you know?
Yeah.
And so it was a lesson that I had to be, oh, even still, if there's things that are happening that maybe isn't your first or your default sort of avenue that you would want to take something or whatever, you have to figure out a way to contribute.
Yeah.
And if you're thinking about it in that way, it's supposed to be, I'm gonna let them do their thing and then I'll edit when it's over with. And I don't even edit, so I don't even know why I would even think that. But just
wait, do you mean you don't edit at all?
I'm not. In most of my teams, I don't know if this person is supposed to be a ghost in the room or whatnot. But
this person, Ryan?
Yeah, I don't know if Ryan's supposed to be a ghost in the room or not.
He is. He'll talk like a ghost in a second. Yeah.
But Ryan can back it up that on Harold, I was probably the person who edited the least out of our 5 years together.
Why is that?
I don't know. I'm very good at noticing when an edit needs to be done.
Yeah.
And so I'll be like, they missed that edit there. And it's like, well, you could have edited it.
Those guys really sat on
that was an edit point. Y'all missed that one. And it's like, dog, you could have edited it, right?
You're over on the corner like whittling a stick. Should have gotten that edit.
It's just so, I don't know. I don't know why, and even still when I edit, I slow edit. I don't even really run that. I do a nice little slow edit.
Slow motion,
I do a slow motion walk across
backwards.
Edit, right? So, yeah.
Do you tag? I feel like you're a person who tags.
Yes.
Yeah. You're very fast. You're such a quick player in terms of like I said, like when you're endowed with something, you don't miss a beat. It's just immediately accepting the endowment. Mm-hmm. When a scene starts, you seem to immediately know the game, or you see it. You can frame it. You can immediately guide it. Mm-hmm. And when people are like on a tear, you are good with tags. Mm-hmm. So yeah, the editing thing surprises me because it's like your brain is so quick at knowing and seeing all of that stuff. It's like,
yeah, I think a lot of times in an edit, you know why? I mean, if I had to sort of assess it just even right now, I think there's an element to editing where there's a time when you edit that just feels like that was it, right? Like that. Like, I don't think after this particular thing we can get any further in this. And I think there are points in scenes where you go, we're editing because we've got a good solid height here, and we've been in this long enough. We don't have to be in this scene that much longer. But there's also a part of it where you're thinking, and this is me thinking, but also I know we could do more with this.
Yeah.
Right. So I think when it came to editing, sometimes it felt to me where it's like, it feels like it's like you're killing the baby.
You're turning the lights on and telling people to leave the party.
Right. And even if you know that it is time to leave the party, you're still like, but the party could keep going.
Maybe one more jam.
Right. Like they might have just a little bit more for the juice for the party.
Right.
And so I guess I was always apprehensive of being the person to be like, nope, party's over.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Even though you know that even though I don't fault the person who did then said the party was over, but for me, it would feel weird sometimes where it's like, oh, you're the party pooper,
right?
So,
yeah, you don't want to be the narc of the fun,
right?
And then when it does reach a time where like there's two people left on the dance floor, one of them passes out, there's just like empty solo cups rolling around, and like a sad, sleepy DJ. You go, man. Y'all should have ended that party.
Yeah, man, this party should have been over a while ago. Y'all flew too close to the sun. Y'all flew too close to the sun. I mean, but I think there's also, just even when you do it in playing with people, or just even recognizing vibes in general, there is that aspect of, oh, I can feel this person is they're calling for the edit. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Like this person is buttoning because they're like, hey, I only got a few more in these. Like, I don't want to push no more. Like, here's an edit beat. Here's this sort of line. And so even recognize like those moments, like those clear moments like that instinctually make me edit
Yeah.
But there's moments where it's like, oh, they can be edited, but they also feel like they're comfortable enough to keep doing this if we let them. Like, that's a different scenario.
You're like, let's leave them out there and find out what the president of space has to say.
Right.
They just declared nuclear war on all language. Let's see what happens.
Nuclear war on all language. And then it's like, well, I have one thing to say, and I can tell you right now, what I'm going to say is going to be racist and sexist. And here we go.
Yeah, let's leave them out there. And here we go. My finger's on the button. Yeah, let's see.
Yes. And here we... finger cramp. It's like, oh, okay, all right.
I was just about to make the joke, like, man, this tells me that I should never do 3-person improv with you, but I have done 3-person improv with you.
You did it at Edinburgh.
Yeah, at Edinburgh, yeah, and I loved it. But yeah, just the idea of being 2 people left out with one person going like, no, I think they got another 20 minutes in this idea.
But the difference in a situation like that is, it's not that I'm sitting there leaving you out and not joining in.
Yeah.
Like, I would more so go, okay, I'm not going to edit, but let's take this person somewhere else.
Right. Let's take this idea.
Yeah, let's take it somewhere else. Like, and that to me is where, my brain is at a lot of the times, where like, what can I add to this scene? How can I make a tag on here? Can I do a walk on that I feel sort of would solidify some aspect of this, or like reinforce or something? And that's how I think about it.
Yeah, it's almost like your ideal style is like what Convoy does, where they don't do any edits, no sweeps. They just keep tagging forward and exploring new aspects. And then it's almost like beat the hell out of the game. Where it's
similar like that. Yeah. Slower, but mine is slower. My version of it is slower.
Here's 20-minute scenes.
Yeah, 20 minutes.
A 4-hour form.
Yeah, and it's crazy. Why is nobody showing up? This is the thing I want to talk about on this podcast. Why is nobody showing up to those shows of mine?
I don't think it's the time thing. I think you should stick to your guns on that. Honestly, there's been an inflationary rise in prices of oysters,
but the oyster prices are high, but the show still is free.
Shoot.
So you guys have to come to my 4-hour, 20-minute scene shows.
It's called 420.
It's called 420. I get a lot of people in there. No stoners allowed. If you walk to the things and you're high, you don't get in.
And also, if you're wearing anything that looks like something a stoner would wear, if you have an alien patch on your beanie, you're not allowed in.
If your shirt or / poncho style jacket is made of hemp or some sort of rope like material,
not allowed.
Not allowed.
If you are eating from a live pint of Cherry Garcia.
If you talk like any Pauly Shore character from the 90s, you're not allowed.
Not allowed. Do you have time for some rapid fire improv questions?
Yeah, let's go.
Just some little quickies.
Yes.
What's your favorite type of character to play?
I think I play a lot of spouses or a boss that like a soft boss or just
like, okay, I'll let it go this one time.
Just like the person that has to be like, hey man, thank you for coming in. I really need to talk to you about something. Like I'm rarely the lieutenant that's like, get your ass in here. And it's like, the character is usually, even when I'm coming through with the character of authority, I'm usually like, hey man, I don't want to come down on you like this.
Right.
I'm giving you a chance to sort of, because I think my default start aspect is, all right, let's start from a place. Let's start from an easy place and then heighten.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that that's everything that I do is that, but I think oftentimes it's like, all right, cool. I want to come in here, give us sort of a thing to work with. It's not too hot. Sometimes it could be like, there's a different degrees of hotness, but it's not too hot.
Yeah.
To where we can sort of build to the hotness. But so yeah, my favorite types is the people that kind of come in and it's real, just like, all right, hey, how you doing? Da, da, da. Now let's kind of get to the meat of the game.
Yeah. Do you have a reference, like a reference base that you would be so happy if someone dropped you in this, like where you just have a ton of references about it?
Sure. I think, yeah. I mean, I know a lot about music. I know a lot about sports. And what you also find is that is not the dominant reference base of a lot of the audience.
Yeah.
Right. Like the specificity of it. And even if there's elements to it, there's still like a balance of how do I implement this in a way that doesn't alienate, the people who don't know this? How can you sort of use this in a way that's helpful? And I think that was something that I had to get better about, right? And had to just to learn. And so yeah, but it is funny because sometimes depending on who you're playing with, sometimes you just do a straight, this is just for me and you. This reference is just for me and you.
Yeah.
And if I get you to laugh, then that means that the thing that I wanted, it happened.
Well, just to take a quick tangent, it strikes me that like I personally feel like any references, even if I don't get them on stage or in the audience, like if you're just making it for the sake of making a reference to like show off, then that's like, who cares? But like if it's part of the scene and you can drop in those ultra specific things, I think it's so great. But yeah, are you saying that what you had to learn was to not be like indulgent with it, or to not
you have to learn, the thing that you have to learn is a reference oftentimes isn't as strong, especially if it's not a reference that is current in a way that everyone knows. Oh man, like if I say Kamala Harris now, everyone knows, everyone quote unquote kind of understands that is the vice president or whatever, but you can't then go whoever. You can't say, I don't know, even know the name of Jimmy Carter's vice president, but you're not going to be like so-and-so and then expect everyone to kind of go like, wait, who's that? It's like, remember Jimmy Carter vice president? It's like, so having to kind of
Agnew, one of those guys. I don't know.
Right.
Was he Nixon?
I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah, who knows?
Who knows?
Yeah.
No one will know.
We will
be able
never
to figure out
find
this
out.
information.
Yeah.
All the people who knew that are dead offhand, so no one knows it.
And that part of our culture died with them.
There's no way to know. So I think it was sort of having to be able to still make a reference, but make a reference in a way that includes people, as opposed to I think the reference alone should be enough, because you oftentimes find out that that wasn't enough. People don't know, right? I mean, there's been times where you've done a show, like I've done a show, even with the big team, where we've done a show, and afterwards, this happened actually, where Lamar was like, "Man, you understand this?" And then one person we were talking to was like, "No, he didn't, man, but it was funny what y'all were doing," because you try to bring people along even if they don't get it. And then he was like, "No, everyone should know this." And then somebody who was walking by, a random person who was walking by, they were like, "Hey, great show." And then he stopped them and was like, "Yeah, okay, hey, da-da-da." He's like, "Did you get this reference in the show?" And they were like, "No, I never heard of it, but you guys are really funny and the way you get it." And he was like, but Lamar was so mad. He was like, "Why don't you, how did not everybody notice? It's all over my algorithm. How did nobody notice?" And so you realize like, oh yeah, oftentimes everyone has to have the same reference base or the same offhand reference base as you. So even if you are using a specific reference, you still need to give them enough of the context for them to sort of at least understand what the reference means to the scene. Yeah,
you can't like dangle it away and be like, this is just for like me and the knowing to know. It's like just tell them so they can enjoy it's like early on, and I've seen them now, but I still couldn't tell you anything about them. Early on, you're in a lot of Star Wars reference, Indiana Jones reference scenes, comic books,
in a way where you're like, what is the what? So it's like, should I watch Star Wars, I guess? So I had to like watch Star Wars to be like, what is this? And I don't feel like it made me any better. And I don't feel like now when somebody walks in, it's like, well, you're on Tatooine or whatever. It's like, sure. Or this type of, like, I don't feel like I can now specifically kind of like, oh, I'm going to be the blue morph character. You know, I can't do any of that, so to speak. But it's like, but you become aware enough of this to kind of fit into that world enough. I'm never going to be the person in references like that where it's like, oh, I'm about to bring up this specific character in this way that people will remember because I just don't know it.
Yeah.
Right? And I don't retain it in that way. But, you know, I think I was early on a lot of those things where people were just being like, you should know this. Like everyone, this is the gospel of, you know, like of our culture.
Yeah.
So you should know this. And they would just kind of come in and you're just like, so-and-so, like, give me the thing. And then if somebody knew Indiana Jones or whatever, they might be able to kind of like fall into that. And I'd be like, what?
I'll tell you right now, as soon as you said so-and-so, give me the thing, I was like, well, he's in Raiders of the Lost Ark and he wants him to throw him the idol. I mean, I knew what you were. So you're doing it. Yeah. You know Indiana Jones well enough.
I mean, because I've been in enough of those scenes.
So-and-so, give me the thing.
I've been in enough of those scenes.
Do you have anything you'd like to plug?
Yes. Yes. Sure.
What I meant to say was sure.
Yes. Sure. Bones Adrian, that's my handle on like Instagram or Twitter or whatever, if you're gonna, or X, what is it called? Who cares? On that, I perform at UCB every first Friday with the big team, and fourth Fridays with Bangarang. But if you can go on Instagram, you can see other shows that I'm in throughout the
Ass Cat. Do you do that regularly?
I don't do it regularly, but I do it. You know, I do it every now and then.
Cool. Great. Go see Ronnie perform. He's amazing. And we'll check you out on Twitter or X or whatever it's called.
Yeah, or whatever it's called.
Whatever it's called.
Whatever. Who cares? Look it up. Maybe if you Google my name, maybe at some point there'll be like a website. There's not one right now, but maybe there will be. Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows? The future, who knows what the future holds?
I am so glad you came and did this. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I'll see you soon. If you have a question about improv that you would like me to ask a future guest, email it to yesalsopod@gmail.com and I will get it on the show. If you're a fan of the show, follow us on Instagram at yesalsopod. And please help us out by liking, rating, reviewing, clicking, sending, talking, and blasting us to your improv communities. That will help us out a lot. If you're a theater who would like to host us for a live recording and improv show, let us know at yesalsopod@gmail.com. A huge shout out to Ryan Rosenberg, who produced this thing with his generous help and his unlimited knowledge about all things podcast. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next week. No, we won't, Susie. That's not how podcasts work. They won't even see us. They will listen to us. So it's actually the opposite of both things you said. Thanks for listening, and you will listen to us next week. Maybe. We don't know.